The morning sun cast long shadows across the wheat fields of Haven Falls when the first alien ships appeared in the sky. The colonists working in the fields stopped their machines and looked up with hands shading their eyes. Some pointed at the dark shapes growing larger against the blue sky. Others reached for communication devices to alert their neighbors. Beth Collins was checking the irrigation system when her old military-cum unit crackled to life. She had kept it out of habit. More than necessity, a reminder of her days commanding star destroyers before she chose to grow grain instead of wage war. The voice coming through was calm but urgent. Unknown vessels entering atmosphere. Configuration suggests Raider-class ships. All residents implement safety protocols. Beth smiled grimly as she recognized the voice of Roy Kim, another veteran, who now ran the colony's security office. Security office was a generous term for what was basically a small building with outdated sensors, but Roy took his job seriously. He had been a Marine captain once, leading assault teams against pirate strongholds. Now he mostly dealt with equipment theft and boundary disputes between farmers. The alien ships moved with the confidence of predators who had done this many times before. 12 vessels in total, their hulls painted in crimson patterns that seemed to shift in the sunlight. They descended toward the main settlement like vultures circling wounded prey. Energy weapons began charging with a distinctive whine that made veteran ears perk up across the colony. Commander Torvik of the Crimson Fleet reviewed his tactical display with satisfaction. The human colony spread across several valleys showed no military installations, no defensive platforms, no sign of organized resistance. Intelligence reports indicated this was an agricultural settlement with roughly 3,000 inhabitants. Farmers, engineers, technicians, and their families. Easy targets with valuable resources. Begin standard acquisition protocol, Torvik ordered his crew. Secure the population centers first, then sweep the outlying farms. These humans will fetch good prices in the slave markets, and their food stores will supply our next 3 raids. The first energy blast struck the colony's communication array, cutting off contact with other worlds. The second wave targeted the power grid, plunging entire districts into darkness. Landing craft disgorged hundreds of armed raiders, who moved with practiced efficiency toward the population centers. What they found surprised them. Instead of panicking crowds running in all directions, the colonists moved with purpose. Families gathered quickly and disappeared into buildings. The streets emptied within minutes, leaving the raiders advancing through what looked like a ghost town. "Where are they?" demanded Sergeant Vrack, leading the assault on the main market district. His tactical scanner showed life signs but no visible targets. They should be running and screaming by now. The answer came in the form of precision rifle fire from seemingly empty windows. 3 raiders dropped before the others could locate the shooters. More shots came from different directions, each one finding its mark with surgical accuracy. The surviving raiders took cover behind vehicles and returned fire, but their energy bolts struck only empty air. In the agricultural district, another landing party discovered that the farm buildings were not as defenseless as they appeared. What looked like a simple grain storage facility suddenly bristled with defensive positions. Farmers emerged from concealed bunkers carrying weapons that definitely did not come from agricultural supply catalogs. Nina Volkov watched the raiders approach her processing plant through electronic scopes she had installed for entirely different reasons. As a former fleet engineer, she understood the value of good surveillance equipment for monitoring automated systems. She also understood how to modify farm equipment for purposes the manufacturers never intended. The lead raider stepped on what appeared to be a simple irrigation control panel buried in the dirt. The explosion that followed was not simple at all. Nina had packed the device with industrial explosives normally used for clearing rock formations. The blast created a crater 3 meters wide and sent the rest of the raiding party scrambling for cover. Harvest protocol is active, Nina spoke into her cum unit, using terminology that would sound like farming jargon to anyone listening. To the other veterans scattered across the colony, it meant something entirely different. Hidden weapons caches were opening. Old unit commanders were taking charge of their assigned sectors. Military protocols dormant for years were coming back to life. Alex Turner had been expecting this day for a long time. As a former fleet intelligence officer, he understood that peaceful retirement was often just a temporary condition. He had spent his farming years maintaining networks and gathering information, just as he had done during his service years. The difference was that now he monitored grain prices and weather patterns instead of enemy fleet movements. When the alien ships appeared, Alex was ready. His farmhouse basement contained communication equipment that could intercept and analyze alien transmissions. Within an hour of the attack beginning, he had broken their basic communication codes and was listening to their tactical chatter. "They are calling for reinforcements," Alex reported through the encrypted channel that connected all the veteran colonists. "This raid is not going as planned. They expected to capture the population centers within 2 hours. Instead, they are taking casualties and making no progress." The aliens were learning that their intelligence had been incomplete. The colonists were not helpless farmers. They were farmers who happened to be former military personnel. They grew crops during peacetime and killed enemies during wartime. And they were very good at both activities. As night fell over Haven Falls, the Crimson Fleet found themselves in an increasingly desperate situation. Their supposedly quick raid had turned into a grinding battle against opponents who seemed to know exactly how to fight them. Every advance was met with carefully planned resistance. Every position they captured turned out to be a trap that cost them more personnel. Commander Torvak studied his casualty reports with growing alarm. In 12 hours of fighting, his forces had lost 30% of their strength while capturing less than 50 colonists. The humans were not fighting like desperate civilians. They were fighting like seasoned soldiers who understood tactics, terrain, and the art of making enemies die for their cause. The worst part was the silence between attacks. Instead of the chaos and panic Torvak had expected, the colony operated with quiet efficiency. Orders were given in calm voices. Positions were abandoned and retaken according to plans that suggested extensive preparation. These humans had been ready for war even while appearing to live in peace. In his command post, hidden beneath what the aliens thought was a simple storage shed, Roy Kim coordinated the defense with the satisfaction of a man doing work he understood completely. The colonists were performing exactly as he had hoped they would when he had helped design the settlement's layout years earlier. Every building, every road, every field had been planned with defense in mind. The real battle was just beginning. Dawn broke over a battlefield that looked nothing like the peaceful farming community it had been 24 hours earlier. Smoke rose from burning alien vehicles scattered across the valley, while the colonists moved between positions with the practiced efficiency of soldiers who had fought together for decades. The underground command center, beneath Roy Kim's security office, hummed with activity that would have impressed any military strategist. Banks of communication equipment lined the walls, connecting every defensive position across the colony. Maps covered every surface, marked with symbols that tracked alien movements and friendly positions. Former officers who had spent years growing vegetables now coordinated tactical operations with the same skill they had once used to plan planetary invasions. "Enemy forces are consolidating around Grid 7, reported Tom Bradley, a former artillery specialist who now raised livestock. His weathered hands moved across digital displays with surprising speed, marking target coordinates based on reports from observation posts hidden throughout the colony. They are trying to establish a stronghold in the industrial district." Beth Collins studied the tactical situation from her position at the central command console. As the senior officer among the colonists, she had naturally assumed overall command when the fighting began. Her wheat farming could wait. Right now she had a battle to win. "Nina, can your people make their position uncomfortable?" Beth asked through the communication system, 3 kilometers away. Nina Volkov smiled as she received the request. Her engineering background had proven invaluable in the past day, as she had transformed peaceful farming equipment into weapons of war. The industrial district contained several of her workshops, and she had been preparing them for exactly this kind of request. "Give me 30 minutes," Nina replied. "I have some modifications that should convince them to relocate." The aliens occupying the industrial buildings thought they had found perfect defensive positions. The structures were solid, with good sight lines and multiple exit routes. What they did not realize was that Nina had spent 5 years installing hidden modifications throughout the district, control systems that appeared to manage manufacturing processes actually controlled something much more dangerous. The first explosion came from beneath the main assembly building Nina had packed industrial mining charges into the foundation supports, turning the entire structure into a controlled demolition. The building collapsed inward with mathematical precision, trapping 24 raiders in the rubble, while leaving adjacent structures undamaged. The second surprise was the irrigation system that ran beneath the industrial complex. Instead of water, it now carried a mixture of fuel and accelerant that Nina had developed for clearing construction sites. When she triggered the release valves, the entire district became a network of underground fire that made the surface uninhabitable for anyone not wearing environmental suits. "Position evacuated," Tom Bradley reported with satisfaction. "Enemy forces retreating toward the river valley." The alien tactical commander watching from orbit could not understand what was happening to his carefully planned operation. The human settlement should have been secured within hours, with the population rounded up for transport to slave markets. Instead, his forces were being systematically destroyed by opponents who seemed to anticipate every move. "Request immediate reinforcement," he transmitted to the fleet command ship. "Human resistance is significantly stronger than intelligence indicated. They are using advanced tactics and equipment." Commander Torvak reviewed the request with growing frustration. His reputation as a successful raider was built on quick, decisive victories against unprepared opponents. The longer this operation continued, the more likely it was that human military forces would arrive to investigate. He needed to end this quickly. "Deploy the heavy assault units," Torvik ordered. "Full combat authorization. Destroy any human who resists and secure the survivors for transport." The heavy assault units were Torvak's elite forces equipped with powered armor and advanced weapons. They had never failed to break enemy resistance within hours of deployment. Against human civilians, they should be unstoppable. The elite units landed in the Central Valley and advanced toward the main settlement with mechanical precision. Their armor deflected small arms fire easily, and their weapons could punch through most defensive structures. They moved in perfect formation, confident that their technological advantage would quickly end the human resistance. They walked into the most carefully prepared ambush in the colony's brief history. Alex Turner had spent the night studying the aliens' tactical patterns and equipment specifications. His intelligence background had taught him to identify weaknesses in enemy systems, and he had found several interesting vulnerabilities in the alien-powered armor. The armor was designed to protect against energy weapons and explosive devices, but it had limitations that could be exploited by creative opponents. The first part of the ambush was psychological. As the elite units advanced through the settlement's main street, they found it lined with the bodies of their fallen comrades from the previous day's fighting. The corpses were arranged in neat rows, each one stripped of weapons and equipment. It was a message written in a language that all soldiers understood. The second part was tactical. Hidden beneath the street surface, Nina had installed electromagnetic pulse devices salvaged from mining equipment. When the alien units reached the center of the settlement, she triggered every device simultaneously. The electromagnetic storm that followed shut down the powered armor systems completely, leaving the aliens trapped inside their own protective gear. The third part was personal. Former soldiers who had spent years learning to grow crops instead of taking lives emerged from concealed positions. They carried weapons designed for hunting local wildlife, but applied with skills learned in military service. The alien elite units discovered that unpowered armor became a death trap when facing opponents who understood anatomy and precision shooting within minutes. The settlement's main street was littered with disabled alien equipment and its former occupants. The Psychological effect on the remaining raider forces was immediate and profound. Their most elite units had been eliminated by human civilians using improvised tactics and hunting weapons. All enemy ground forces are withdrawing to landing zones, reported Roy Kim from his command post. They appear to be attempting evacuation. Beth? Collins studied the situation with the calm satisfaction of a commander whose plan was proceeding exactly as intended. The aliens had made the fundamental mistake of underestimating their opponents. They had assumed that peaceful humans were helpless humans, and that assumption was going to cost them everything. Alex, are you monitoring their communications? Beth asked. Every transmission, Alex confirmed. They are requesting immediate extraction and reporting total mission failure. Estimated casualties are over 60% of their ground forces. The colonists had achieved something remarkable in just 2 days of fighting. They had transformed from peaceful farmers into a military force that had decisively defeated a professional raiding organization. They had done it using improvised equipment, abandoned tactics, and the kind of creative problem-solving that comes from years of agricultural experience, applied to military objectives. But Beth Collins knew that this victory was only the beginning. The aliens would not simply abandon their ships and retreat. They would try to escape with whatever intelligence they had gathered, and they would return with reinforcements if they succeeded. It was time to make sure they never got the chance to report what they had learned about human colonists who chose farming over fighting, but retained every skill needed to do both. The alien evacuation ships lifted off from Haven Falls with desperate urgency, their engines straining to escape the planet's gravity as quickly as possible. Commander Torvak watched from his flagship as the remnants of his ground forces crowded into cargo holds designed for human prisoners, not retreating soldiers. The mission had become a complete disaster, and his only priority now was preserving what remained of his fleet. Set course for hyperspace transition point, Torvak ordered his navigation officer. Maximum acceleration. We need to clear this system before human military forces arrive. What Torvak did not know was that the colonists had no intention of letting him leave. Deep beneath the rolling hills that surrounded the main settlement, massive doors were sliding open for the first time in 8 years. The underground hangars had been carved from solid rock by mining equipment, then disguised as natural cave formations. Inside these hidden spaces, 3 ships waited in perfect condition. Alex Turner stood in the command center of the lead vessel, running his hands over controls he had not touched since his retirement. The ship was a Defender-class frigate, officially, decommissioned and sold for scrap metal. In reality, it had been purchased by a group of veterans who understood that peaceful retirement did not mean helpless retirement. They had spent years maintaining the ships in secret, using their agricultural operations to hide the massive energy requirements needed to keep military-grade vessels operational. All systems showing green, reported Lisa Shun from the engineering station. She had been the chief engineer on a battlecruiser before choosing to grow medical herbs in her retirement. Her knowledge of military power systems had proven invaluable in maintaining the hidden fleet. Weapons are charged and ready for combat operations. The second ship was commanded by David Park, a former fighter squadron leader who now raised poultry. His piloting skills had improved rather than deteriorated during his farming years, as he had spent countless hours practicing with atmospheric craft and maintaining his reflexes. The third vessel was under the command of Maria Santos, whose specialty had been electronic warfare before she became an expert in soil chemistry. Enemy fleet is approaching orbital departure point, Alex announced over the squadron communication channel. They think they are escaping to safety? Time to show them how wrong they are? The 3 human ships emerged from their underground hiding places like predators emerging from carefully prepared ambush positions. Their engines had been modified with agricultural equipment that masked their heat signatures, making them nearly invisible to the alien sensors until they were ready to reveal themselves. They rose through the planet's atmosphere in perfect formation, their approach vectors calculated to intercept the fleeing raider fleet at the moment of maximum Vulnerability. Commander Torvak was reviewing casualty reports when his sensor officer suddenly announced contact with unknown vessels approaching from the planet's surface. The tactical display showed 3 ships of unfamiliar design moving to intercept his fleet. For a moment, Torvik allowed himself to hope that these were human, civilian vessels attempting to negotiate for their colony's safety. That hope died when the first human ship opened fire with military-grade plasma cannons that cut through his escort vessel's shields like they were made of paper. The escort ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light that illuminated the shocked faces of every alien crew member watching from their command stations. Human military vessels. Torvak's tactical officer reported with obvious panic. They have been hiding on the planet's surface. We are under attack by 3 frigate-class warships. The aliens had walked into a trap that had been years in the making. The colonists had not simply retired from military service, they had established a hidden military base disguised as an agricultural settlement. The 3 frigates were supported by surface-based defensive platforms that had been camouflaged as communication arrays and weather monitoring stations. Lisa Chun coordinated the surface defenses from her engineering station, targeting the alien ships with weapons that officially did not exist. The defensive platforms were equipped with missile systems salvaged from decommissioned military installations, maintained by veterans who understood exactly how to make them operational. The missiles streaked upward from concealed launch tubes, hidden throughout the farming valleys. Multiple missile impacts on the enemy flagship, David Park reported from his fighter squadron commander's position. They are losing propulsion power and atmosphere. Recommend immediate boarding action to secure prisoners and intelligence. The battle was proceeding with the kind of coordinated precision that only came from years of training and experience. Each human ship knew exactly what role to play in the engagement, and their commanders understood how to support each other's actions. They moved like pieces of a single weapon system rather than independent vessels. The alien fleet found themselves caught between the human frigates above and the surface defenses below, with no escape route available. Their ships were designed for raiding defenseless colonies, not fighting coordinated military actions against prepared opponents. The technology gap they had counted on to ensure victory had been eliminated by human ingenuity and preparation. Enemy command ship is disabled, Maria Santos reported from her electronic warfare station. I have penetrated their communication systems and confirmed that they have not transmitted any intelligence about our capabilities to their fleet command. All ships in the system are accounted for. Commander Torvak stared at his tactical display in complete disbelief. His 12-ship raiding fleet had been reduced to 3 barely functional vessels in less than 30 minutes of combat. The humans had not simply defended their colony, they had prepared a trap that had destroyed his entire organization. Worse yet, they had done it with ships and weapons that intelligence reports claimed did not exist on the planet. Sir, the human vessels are demanding our surrender, his communication officer reported. They are offering to accept our surrender and guarantee treatment according to standard military protocols. Torvak had 2 choices. He could attempt to fight to the death and ensure that his fleet was completely destroyed, or he could surrender and hope that human military protocols included provisions for prisoner exchange. Given that his alternative was certain death, the choice was simple. Transmit our surrender, Torvak ordered. All ships stand down weapons and prepare for boarding. Alex Turner received the surrender message with satisfaction but no surprise. The aliens had fought exactly as he had expected them to fight, and they had lost exactly as he had planned for them to lose. The trap had been years in the making, and it had worked perfectly. Boarding parties prepare for prisoner transfer, Alex announced. Standard protocols apply? Secure all intelligence materials and prepare the prisoners for interrogation. The colonists who boarded the alien ships were the same people who had been growing crops and raising livestock just days earlier. Now they moved through enemy vessels, with the confidence of soldiers who understood ship-to-ship combat operations. They secured weapons, gathered intelligence materials, and processed prisoners with mechanical efficiency. What the aliens did not realize was that their capture was Not the end of the colonists' plan. It was actually just the beginning of a much larger operation that would send a message throughout the galaxy about what happened when humans were pushed beyond their limits. The colonists had won their battle, but they understood that winning battles was not the same thing as winning wars. The real victory would come when the galaxy understood exactly what kind of enemy they had chosen to make. When they decided to attack human colonies, that lesson was about to begin. The interrogation facility beneath Haven Falls had never been designed for questioning alien prisoners, but the colonists adapted it with the same practical efficiency they applied to every challenge. Former intelligence officer Alex Turner sat across from Commander Torvak in a room that smelled of fresh concrete and recycled air, watching the alien commander struggle with the reality of his situation. "You are not simple farmers," Torvak said in heavily accented human speech, his translator device working to convert his thoughts into words that Alex could understand. Intelligence reports indicated this was an agricultural settlement with no military capabilities. Alex smiled without warmth. Intelligence reports were correct. We are farmers. We grow grain, raise livestock, and maintain peaceful lives. The fact that we also know how to kill efficiently does not contradict our agricultural activities. The interrogation had been proceeding for 6 hours, and Alex had gathered enough information to understand the true scope of the threat facing humanity. The Crimson Fleet was not an independent raiding organization. They were scouts for something much larger and more dangerous. "Tell me about the Hegemony Collective," Alex said, consulting notes he had taken during previous sessions. "How many species belong to this alliance, and what are their intentions regarding human colonies?" Torvak's silence lasted for several minutes. He was weighing the consequences of cooperation against the consequences of resistance, and Alex could see the moment when pragmatism won over loyalty. Survival instincts were universal among intelligent species. 17 species, Torvik admitted. Combined fleet strength of over 4,000 warships. They view humanity as a potential threat to establish territorial boundaries and resource allocation agreements. The information confirmed Alex's worst fears. The attack on Haven Falls was not random piracy. It was reconnaissance for a major military operation. The Hegemony Collective was planning to eliminate human expansion before it became a serious challenge to their established order. "When is the invasion fleet scheduled to arrive?" Alex asked. 3 months, Torvik replied. "They expect to find a destroyed colony and detailed intelligence about human defensive capabilities. When we fail to report, they will investigate with a full battle group." Alex thanked Torvak for his cooperation and left the interrogation room to brief the other senior colonists. The news was as bad as he had expected, but it also presented an opportunity that none of them had anticipated. The hegemony was expecting to find evidence of human weakness. Instead, they were going to discover something that would fundamentally change their understanding of what humanity represented. In the main conference room, Beth Collins listened to Alex's report with the calm attention of an officer who had faced impossible odds before. Around the table, other former military leaders absorbed the information and began calculating possibilities. The threat was enormous, but they had 3 months to prepare a response. "We cannot fight a fleet of 4,000 warships," Beth said, stating the obvious truth that everyone understood. "But we can make sure they receive a message that will prevent future attacks on human colonies." Nina Volkov looked up from the technical specifications she had been reviewing. The captured alien vessels contained complete navigation records and communication equipment. "We could modify one of their ships to carry a transmission package back to Hegemony space." "What kind of message did you have in mind?" asked Roy Kim. "Beth's?" Answer made everyone in the room very quiet. "We are going to show them exactly what happens when humans decide to stop being peaceful. We are going to document every aspect of our victory and send it to their leadership along with the survivors of this raid." The plan that emerged from that meeting was unlike anything the colonists had ever attempted. Instead of simply defending their colony and hoping for the best, they were going to actively demonstrate human capabilities in a way that would discourage future aggression. They were going to turn their victory into a weapon of psychological warfare over the following weeks. The colonists worked with systematic thoroughness to document every aspect of their successful defense. They recorded detailed tactical analyses of each engagement, complete with video footage of alien forces being destroyed by improvised weapons and agricultural equipment. They compiled technical specifications of every modification they had made to farming equipment, showing exactly how peaceful tools could be transformed into instruments of war. Most importantly, they created psychological profiles of every colonist who had participated in the fighting. These profiles demonstrated that the humans who had destroyed an entire raiding fleet were not professional soldiers or career warriors. They were retirees, grandparents, people who had chosen peaceful lives but retained the skills and knowledge needed to defend themselves when threatened. Maria Santos coordinated the intelligence package using her electronic warfare expertise. "We need to make sure they understand the implications," she explained to the assembly of colonists who were reviewing the final materials. Every human who fought in this battle was supposedly retired from military service. We need them to extrapolate what that means about active duty human forces. The psychological impact was carefully calculated. If retired human civilians could destroy professional alien raiders, what would happen if the hegemony encountered human military units that were actively training for war? If agricultural colonists could improvise devastating weapons from farming equipment, what could human military engineers accomplish with unlimited resources and time to prepare? David Park added another element to the package that made everyone smile with dark satisfaction. "I have included complete technical specifications for our hidden frigate squadron, along with detailed explanations of how we concealed military-grade vessels using agricultural operations. I want them to wonder how many other human colonies have similar capabilities." The final element of the message was the most unsettling. Alex Turner had compiled historical records of human warfare, focusing on the efficiency and creativity that humans brought to the task of killing each other. The records showed centuries of continuous military innovation, tactical development, and strategic thinking applied to increasingly sophisticated conflicts. "They need to understand that we did not become good at warfare because we fight aliens," Alex explained. "We became good at warfare because we fight each other. The techniques we used against the Crimson Fleet were developed during conflicts between human nations. We have spent our entire species history perfecting the art of killing intelligent opponents." The implications were deliberately terrifying. If humans could wage war against their own species with such efficiency and creativity, what would they do to alien species that threatened their colonies? The hegemony would be forced to consider that humanity's internal conflicts might actually be training exercises for external threats. When the package was complete, it filled several data storage devices with information that would revolutionize alien understanding of human capabilities. The technical data alone was worth years of military intelligence gathering, but the psychological profiles and historical records were far more valuable. They painted a picture of a species that approached warfare as both an art and a science, constantly improving their methods through practical application. Commander Torvak was released along with the other surviving members of his fleet, but not before being thoroughly briefed on the contents of the intelligence package. He would serve as a living witness to everything the data contained, able to confirm that the human colonists were exactly what they claimed to be. "You will deliver this information to the hegemony leadership," Beth Collins told Torvak before his departure. "You will explain exactly how a single agricultural colony defended itself against your fleet. You will make sure they understand that we are not unique among human settlements." The modified alien vessel departed Haven Falls carrying its cargo of survivors and intelligence bound for hegemony space with a message that would reshape galactic politics. The colonists watched it disappear into hyperspace, knowing that they had just declared war on the largest military alliance in the galaxy, but they had declared it in the most human way possible, by demonstrating that they were too dangerous to fight. The council chamber of the Hegemony Collective had never been designed to accommodate fear. But that emotion filled every corner of the vast space as alien leaders from 17 different species studied the intelligence package that had arrived from the human colony. The modified Crimson Fleet vessel had limped into hegemony space 3 weeks earlier, carrying survivors who told stories that challenged everything the Council thought they knew about humanity. Supreme Commander Vorthek of the primary fleet studied the tactical recordings with growing unease. The videos showed human civilians destroying professional military units using improvised weapons and agricultural equipment. The technical specifications included in the package demonstrated levels of creativity and ingenuity that suggested a species naturally adapted for warfare. "These recordings are authentic," announced Chief Analyst Kelrin, whose species specialized in detecting deception and manipulation. The human colonists documented their victory with scientific precision. Every engagement, every casualty, every tactical decision has been recorded and analyzed. Around the circular table, representatives from 17 species absorbed information that would reshape their understanding of galactic politics. The humans had not simply defended their colony through luck or desperation. They had systematically destroyed the Crimson Fleet using techniques that suggested extensive military experience applied with cold efficiency. "The psychological profiles are the most disturbing element," reported Intelligence Director Zephan. "The humans who participated in this battle were not active military personnel. They were retirees who had chosen agricultural pursuits over continued military service. According to their own records, they considered themselves civilians." The implications created uncomfortable silence throughout the chamber. If human civilians could achieve such devastating tactical victories, what capabilities did their active military forces possess? The hegemony had been planning to eliminate human expansion through superior technology and numbers, but the evidence suggested that such assumptions might be fatally flawed. "Commander," Torvek stood before the assembled council with the haunted expression of someone who had experienced the impossible. His testimony had been recorded and analyzed multiple times, but his basic account never changed. The human colonists had transformed from peaceful farmers into lethal soldiers within hours of the attack beginning. "They knew exactly how to fight us," Torvek explained in response to questions from the council. "Every tactic we employed had been anticipated. Every advantage we thought we possessed had been neutralized by preparation and planning. They did not fight like desperate civilians. They fought like soldiers who had been waiting for this battle their entire lives." The historical records included in the intelligence package painted an even more disturbing picture of human capabilities. Centuries of continuous warfare between human nations had produced a species that approached military conflict as both an academic discipline and a practical art. The techniques used against the Crimson Fleet were apparently standard methods that humans used against each other. Their internal conflicts serve as training exercises for external threats, observed strategic analyst Mordain, whose species had achieved galactic prominence through careful military planning. Every human war improves their collective understanding of tactical and strategic warfare. They have been preparing to fight us for their entire species history without knowing we existed. The technical specifications for the human hidden fleet presented another level of concern. The colonists had maintained military-grade vessels using agricultural operations as cover, suggesting levels of deception and long-term planning that few species could achieve. If one farming colony possessed such capabilities, how many other human settlements were similarly prepared? Defense Minister Cathara reviewed the intelligence with particular attention to human improvisation capabilities. They transformed farming equipment into military weapons with minimal resources and preparation time. Their engineers appear capable of weaponizing any available technology through creative application of scientific principles. The Council faced a decision that would determine the future relationship between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. The planned invasion fleet was still being assembled, but the intelligence from Haven Falls suggested that such an attack might result in catastrophic losses for hegemony forces. The humans had demonstrated that they were far more dangerous than initial assessments had indicated. "We have three options," Supreme Commander Vorthok announced after hours of debate. "We can proceed with the invasion and accept massive casualties, while attempting to overwhelm human defenses through superior numbers. We can negotiate a treaty that establishes boundaries and prevents further human expansion. Or we can withdraw from human space entirely and hope they do not decide to expand in our direction." The vote was unanimous. The Hegemony Collective would immediately cease all hostile activities against human colonies and would open diplomatic communications to negotiate territorial boundaries. The invasion fleet would be disbanded, and the Crimson Fleet incident would be classified as an unauthorized action by rogue elements. In secure communication channels throughout hegemony space, military commanders received new standing orders regarding human encounters. Any contact with human vessels or colonies was to be treated as a diplomatic situation requiring immediate consultation with high command. Under no circumstances were hegemony forces to initiate hostile actions against human targets without explicit authorization from the Supreme Council. The intelligence package from Haven Falls was distributed to every military academy in hegemony space as a case study in tactical analysis and strategic planning. Future officers would study the human victory as an example of how inferior forces could defeat superior enemies through preparation, creativity, and superior understanding of warfare principles. Most importantly, the psychological profiles of the human colonists became required reading for anyone involved in xenological studies. The concept of a species that could transition seamlessly between peaceful agricultural pursuits and lethal military action challenged fundamental assumptions about how intelligent civilizations developed and maintained themselves. Commander Torvak found himself appointed as a special advisor on human affairs, despite his failure during the Haven Falls operation. His first-hand experience with human tactical capabilities made him uniquely qualified to help hegemony forces understand the threat they had chosen not to engage. "They are not like other species," Torvak explained to groups of military officers and political leaders. "They do not separate their civilian and military populations the way we do. Every human is potentially a soldier, and every human community is potentially a military installation. They hide their true capabilities behind peaceful activities until they choose to reveal them." The message from Haven Falls had achieved everything the colonists had hoped to accomplish. The galaxy's largest military alliance had decided that humanity was too dangerous to fight, based entirely on the documented capabilities of a single agricultural colony. The psychological impact of the intelligence package had eliminated the threat of invasion without requiring additional military action. In the months that followed, other raiding organizations throughout the galaxy received copies of the Haven Falls documentation through various intelligence networks. The recordings of human colonists destroying professional military forces became cautionary tales told in every spaceport bar and mercenary guild meeting. The name Haven Falls became synonymous with the concept that peaceful humans were often the most dangerous humans. Back on the colony world, life gradually returned to its normal patterns of planting, growing, and harvesting. The hidden frigates returned to their underground hangars, and the improvised weapons were stored away for future need. The colonists resumed their peaceful agricultural pursuits with the satisfaction of knowing that their victory had protected not just their own settlement, but potentially every human colony in the galaxy. Beth Collins stood in her wheat fields 6 months after the battle, watching the golden grain sway in the morning breeze. The harvest would be excellent this year, and the markets were paying premium prices for Haven Falls agricultural products. Word had spread through trading networks that this particular colony produced exceptional quality crops. Though few buyers understood the full story behind that reputation, the communication array that Roy Kim had rebuilt after the battle crackled, with routine messages about weather patterns, shipping schedules, and crop reports. Hidden within the agricultural data were coded reports from other human colonies, many of which had quietly implemented their own defensive preparations based on the Haven Falls model. The galaxy had learned that attacking human settlements was dangerous, but they had not learned that the lesson was being applied throughout human space. Nina Volkov received regular inquiries from engineering firms throughout human territory, seeking consultation on agricultural equipment modifications and defensive system integration. Her expertise in transforming peaceful technology into military applications had become highly valued, though she continued to present herself as a simple farmer with an interest in mechanical innovation. Alex Turner maintained his intelligence networks with the same dedication he applied to crop rotation. Schedules. Reports filtered in from across the galaxy indicating that the Hegemony Collective had not only abandoned their invasion plans, but had actively discouraged other species from pursuing aggressive policies toward humanity. The intelligence package had achieved a level of deterrence that formal military threats could never have accomplished. The most satisfying development was the establishment of regular diplomatic contact between humanity and the Hegemony Collective. The first ambassador to arrive at Haven Falls was a nervous young official who clearly expected to find a heavily fortified military installation. Instead, he found farmers who served him fresh vegetables and discussed agricultural techniques with genuine enthusiasm. "Your colony has become legendary throughout our space," the ambassador confided during one of his visits. "Military academies study your tactical achievements, and political leaders cite your defense as an example of human capabilities. You have achieved something remarkable through your victory." Beth Collins smiled as she offered the ambassador another helping of fresh corn. "We achieved survival," she replied. "Everything else was just good planning and practical application of available resources." The ambassador's report back to Hegemony leadership emphasized the unsettling normality of life on Haven Falls. The colonists, who had destroyed an entire raiding fleet, were indistinguishable from farmers on any other agricultural world. They discussed soil chemistry and weather patterns with the same expertise they had once applied to tactical planning and weapon systems. The seamless integration of military and civilian capabilities remained the most frightening aspect of human society. Years passed, and Haven Falls continued to prosper as both an agricultural center and a symbol of human defensive capabilities. The colony's reputation ensured that no hostile force would ever again consider it an easy target, while its genuine productivity made it a valuable contributor to human economic networks. The colonists had achieved the perfect balance between strength and peace. The children born on Haven Falls after the battle grew up hearing stories of the great victory, but they learned those stories alongside lessons about crop rotation and livestock management. They understood that their community was capable of extraordinary things when necessary, but that such capabilities were tools to be used only when peaceful alternatives had been exhausted. The galaxy had learned that humanity's most dangerous individuals were often those who chose not to fight, but retained every skill needed to defend themselves and their communities when threatened. The message from Haven Falls echoed through space as a reminder that peaceful civilizations could also be perfectly lethal civilizations, and that wisdom lay in understanding the difference between choosing peace and being incapable of war. Commander Torvik eventually retired from military service and became a teacher, sharing his experiences with students who would never make the mistake of underestimating human capabilities. His lectures always ended with the same warning: never assume that peaceful humans are helpless humans. They have simply chosen to direct their abilities toward creation rather than destruction. That choice can be changed very quickly when circumstances require it. The wheat fields of Haven Falls continued to produce exceptional harvests, tended by farmers who understood that the best victories were those that prevented the need for future battles. They had sent their message to the galaxy, and the galaxy had received it clearly. Humanity would be left alone to pursue their peaceful expansion among the stars, protected by the knowledge that their agricultural colonies were far more dangerous than they appeared to be.